What makes Mario games so fun is the gameplay. Whether it be in the 3D collectathons, or the 3D course clear games, or the 2D platformers, or the RPG series. It's mostly the amazing gameplay that makes them so fun and addicting, or the level design to be more specific. The 2D Mario Bros. Games are expertly designed with puzzles and obstacles not too difficult for the average player, but not too easy so that even adults can get behind them. All the 3D titles like Mario 64, Sunshine, Galaxy, whatever, have big open worlds that somehow perfectly coordinate freedom of exploration with that same classic linear level style that takes advantage of core Mario concepts like interacting with the world by jumping on things. I could go on, but the point is we all know how good Mario is at this kind of stuff. That's why it rose to the top of platform gaming in the first place and is known for it. Games like Mario Galaxy wisp you away to a new location every few minutes so you can experience different types of challenges according to their environment. Other games take advantage of mini-games within the game itself and have everything revolve around basic action commands. It sounds obvious, but Mario is what kind of started this. In the Mario and Luigi series, practically everything you do revolves around you pressing the A or B button in different ways. A equals Mario and B equals Luigi. It's really that simple. But the talent and design it takes to make a fun and interactive game revolving around that one simple concept is honestly amazing. This kind of thing is why, of course, I've played various Mario games multiple times over. They're just that easy to get into and absorb some time in. But when it comes to Mario, as fun as most of the games are, I always felt like there was one key thing missing, mainly in the more modern ones. Well, I guess I didn't always feel that way. I didn't really notice it until I got a bit older. To me back then, a Mario game was just a fucking Mario game, and I could barely identify a difference between entirely different genres like Luigi's Mansion and Mario Party. But the missing aspect is that sometimes Mario can have a lack of a story. This idea is somewhat present in the 3D games, especially present in the 2D Mario Bros. Games, and fully embodied in modern Paper Mario. What I'm getting at, basically, is virtually the same concept that many people complain about how a series like Paper Mario, which used to have so many cool different species and memorable characters, has now been, for some strange reason, reduced to Goombas, Koopas, and 1,000,005 identical-ass Toads so you can never tell the fucking difference between. This kind of problem is also present in modern Mario and Luigi compared to classic Mario and Luigi. The 3 original games of the Mario and Luigi series introduced new villains with their own unique goals and was a healthy breath of fresh air from the usual Bowser kidnaps Peach and you gotta get her back plot. But the 2 later games, Dream Team and Paper Jam, despite having creative concepts and definitely some cool characters, just went back to plain old Bowser's up to some villainous shit and is the main bad guy yet again. And yes, the original Paper Mario did have Bowser as the main villain, but this was the first time they did that in that series, and the original Paper Mario still has the best telling of the classic Mario story and still had unique characters and numerous subplots. And hey, even if the 3D Mario games are less story-oriented by nature, Odyssey still did an amazing job introducing a lot of new races and actually creative locations besides just generic grassland, desertland, and snowland. Odyssey even brought back Pauline. Not a character I particularly care about in any way, but hey, any initiative to add different characters besides just Mario, Peach, and Bowser throughout the whole 30 to 50 hour experience is more than fine by me. You know, the 3D Mario series is typically known for adding maybe 1 or 2 new characters and some slight world building every time it happens, and I can't really knock it too much for that, but the 2D Mario Bros. Games is where we kind of have a problem, because it kind of embodies that repetitive Mario linearity I keep talking about, having now 5 games in its series which basically follow the same, okay, go through Grassland, Desertland, Oceanland, Snowland, Jungle Land, Mountain Land, Cloudland, and Volcano Land, then fight Bowser, rescue Peach at the end. I'll also fight the Kooplings at the end of every world. And while this works the first time, it doesn't exactly work, at least in my mind, 4 fucking times in a row. I know, it would be hard to expect any sort of storytelling from a 2D platformer that's simple in design like many other Mario games, but I'm talking about a really general thing here and how it affects the series as a whole when it just keeps happening. But of course you might ask, you know, why do you play Mario games if you have such a big issue with their lack of story elements? And again, I love Mario more than anything though. The issue I'm talking about somehow only sort of hinders Mario's greatness. Essentially, you could completely eliminate all story elements within Mario whatsoever and dumb the games down to just Mario, Peach, Bowser, and 10,000 identical Toads, and they would still be great for the most part. Why? Well, that's because of the outstanding gameplay and level design I mentioned earlier. In fact, that's why I mentioned it in the first place. The game design skill that goes into Mario is so great and professional that it literally carries the series on its back and can survive with that one skill alone. The point I'm trying to make is that Mario's lack of story elements, sometimes in the older games but mostly in the modern scene, is a little disappointing because just imagine the sheer heights Mario as a franchise could achieve if it simply combined a story just as great as its gameplay in one package. I may sound like I'm overhyping it a bit, but I think it would be revolutionary how good Mario would actually be if that were true. Story elements and great characters are what motivate people to want to play games. It's what gets people talking about the game multiple years, even a decade after its release. games like Undertale are a classic example of this. I feel like most people would agree the gameplay in Undertale isn't even that good, but people still love it to this very day, because of how fantastic the writing, the characters, the overarching plot, and the lore is. Imagine if Mario could just take that extra step and do the same shit, to have the best of both worlds. Now, I think we can all come together to understand why the simplicity of Mario is the way it is, because, you know, Miyamoto. Miyamoto has this kind of belief that Mario is mainly supposed to be just a simple and fun classic adventure, and incorporating involved story and lore just isn't and shouldn't be what Mario's about. A sentiment I obviously disagree with, but I can see where he's coming from in some respects. And since Nintendo is now currently going down a straight vertical dive into corporate greed and minimal effort into their games, a bland story to whatever actual new Mario games ever come out seems all but assured. So the point is, if I didn't have high hopes for a new direction given to Mario in which stories prioritize as much as gameplay back then, there's most certainly no hope for that happening now. You know, never gonna happen, be happy with what you got. And what I want to talk about today is that even though I've bitched hell and high waters about Mario lacking story elements most of the time, I'm happy to say that there are actually a few exceptions. Because remember, I didn't say Mario is like this all the time. There are a few rare gems hidden within the depths of the mining field of stones that is Mario. There have been a few games, whether due to circumstances of being partly worked on by a separate sister company, or actually some stuff being secretly slipped in by developers without Miyamoto's knowledge, have something special within them. And I'm here because I want to tell you about them. Yes, there actually have been a few moments in various Mario games where it did have really good storytelling and actual lore to it. And whether you're completely ignorant to them, only semi-familiar, or you know all about them, this video will either pique your interest into different corners of the Mario canon, or you'll be riding along with me saying, dude, exactly, that's what I've been saying. So, now I'm going to tell you two different tales, okay? Tales of the one who watches over all and the gateway to the starry sky, and the tale of a power-hungry, beanish villain with a genius mind who very nearly conquered the entire Mushroom Kingdom. So get ready for some awesomeness. Also, one thing I want to mention is that I'm also fully aware of, you know, the earlier Paper Mario games and how they have amazing story elements and really memorable and good characters too. And they are included in this kind of thing I'm talking about. But I'm not going to be talking about Paper Mario today because the list will be kind of long and the video will be very long because of it. So I will be talking about early Paper Mario another day, but just know that they are included in these rare moments that I'm talking about. The Comet Observatory makes its patient way around the lonely universe, traveling through the galaxies at a leisurely pace. The spaceship circles around the universe in such an orderly way it's almost become a part of the natural functions of space itself. Until one day Bowser's ambitions to conquer extended beyond the realm of the planet alone, and he devised a master plan to take over the entire galaxy and rule alongside Peach at its center. He would do this by utilizing the Power Stars. 120 in total, they wield a special energy which powers the Comet Observatory into galactic flight in the first place. And from the Comet Observatory is where Bowser had stolen each and every last Power Star from. Being blasted off into the depths of space himself, Mario has his life saved by a creature called a Luma, the baby Luma to be more specific, who possesses a unique power which he shares with Mario. It's soon found out that the Lumas are the magical creatures that inhabit the Comet Observatory and claim it as their home, in which they live peacefully amongst each other, drifting around space without a single care. The place Baby Luma had taken Mario for refuge is a planet dubbed the Gateway to the Starry Sky, a seemingly very special place where the Comet Observatory will pass by once every 100 years, and just happened to be making it stop by when Bowser had attacked and stolen all the observatory's all-important Power Stars. This led the observatory to having to be forced parked near the gateway to the Starry Sky with no energy left to move. After Mario is implored by the Lumas to rescue the first Grand Star in a nearby enemy base, he is brought to the observatory for the very first time and is greeted by an unfamiliar princess-looking girl who even resembles Mario's own mistress a little bit. Her name is, of course, Rosalina, and she explains the story of how their observatory home had been traveling peacefully around the universe until Bowser's destructive intergalactic reign had taken hold. She then requests that Mario journeys to the distant galaxies observable through the different domes of the ship and recovers enough Power Stars so that they will regain the ability to travel through space once again, and so that the Lumas will regain their life force and spirit. In exchange, Mario would be given a welcoming home within this observatory along with countless Luma friends and an eventual chance to confront Bowser himself at the center of the universe. This, of course, is the story anyone slightly familiar with Mario Galaxy would already be aware of, but with most of the Mario games yielding different races of people, the lore would be just as simple as what I explained so far and likely stop there, not really having anything else to tell. But as you can guess, this is not the case when it comes to Mario Galaxy, at least not until you unlock a special little place called the Library. Now, regardless of that, what I've described so far just now is already so, intensely and unexpectedly warm for a Mario game. I don't know, I just never would have expected something quite like this if I hadn't become so accustomed to it and didn't grow up playing Mario Galaxy. Because, like, in Sunshine you have Piantas, right? I mean, you know, they're cool. I got no problem there. A humble little island race of people who enjoy their humble little island life. And in Thousand Year Door you got, like, Rogueport, an inner-city hub of many different and creative types of toads, bob-ombs, and other races like that. You know, a cool place, but hardly one I, or probably Mario, would consider a home with fond memories of. But the Comet Observatory, it just feels kinda like a home, you know? It has such a majestic presence and backstory to it, a lone spaceship unknown to most residents of the universe, traveling throughout space until Mario just happened to have a chance encounter with it, and then it became his home too. The Lumas are so friendly and kind, like little partners who just accepted Mario into their home and treat him like an older brother of sorts, which can be seen through their various interactions with him. There's this one Red Luma who initially doesn't trust Mario very much, and doesn't want to let him in on the secret of its precious Red Star power-up. But when Mario demonstrates his skill with the Red Star and the Gateway to the Starry Skies level, the Red Luma then offers the Flying Star as a present for Mario to use throughout the observatory. It just feels like a little side quest they didn't have to program in, but it adds to the likability of the Lumas even more. Every dome, instead of like some badass hub that has every boss and enemy Mario's gonna face in their particular levels on full display, is instead just like rooms in a house. The kitchen, the bedroom, the fountain, the garden, they're all just peaceful rooms which you can use to launch the next designated galaxy from, the vastness and loneliness of space being observable through them. Because that's what the Comet Observatory is. It's a home. A big old home that actually truly feels that way, not just some, you know, regular hub like you would usually have in almost any game like this. That's why it's by far my favorite hub in any game. But even despite all that, the lore behind Rosalina and the Lumas goes beyond even that, taking hold in the aforementioned library. Mario will unlock various chapters in a picture book the more power stars he collects, and the book can be read within the library, of course. But it's not just that, Mario isn't even the one reading it himself. Rosalina is the one who reads it not only to Mario, but to a small group of her loyal Luma children, who gather upon the rug near a fireplace, huddled close to Mario as he's unconditionally invited to listen alongside them. I don't know, I just love the fact that even though this book contains a story that directly involves the Lumas themselves, and they've gone through the events personally, you know, at least most of them probably have, and, you know, all the Lumas there have probably listened to this tale over 1,000 times already, they still gather in the confines of the library every once in a while to hear it yet again. It's just like family time to them, and now you, Mario, are a part of that family. So, here's what the book is about. The story of how Rosalina, protector of the stars, came to be. Long ago, on a distant, unknown planet, Rosalina lived a quiet life with her presumably human family. When one day, she has a chance encounter with a beige Luma child who crash lands on her home planet. A Luma that looks awfully similar to the one that accompanies Mario throughout his adventure. The Luma claims that it has been waiting for its mother to return to it, but has never shown herself. Little girl Rosalina's naive and optimistic nature caused her to promise the Star Child she would do all in her power to help the Luma reunite with its mother, solidified by the interlocking of fingers. To a child, a promise is basically the equivalent of swearing your entire life to something. The pair observed the glistening night sky through Rosalina's telescope, seemingly every night for years on end, but to no avail, of course. No trace of a Luma's mother as far as the eye could see. Nothing. Rosalina was so determined to help her newfound friend, however, that she eventually decided to take the Luma's spaceship and venture out into the stars herself just so they could find her. And along the way, they find a lone comet that Rosalina feels drawn to take refuge on, and soon learns how Lumas enjoy the taste of starbits, a homage to how feeding them starbits in the game satisfies them greatly. Later, Rosalina has a vivid dream in which her mother turns her back on the child and is seen walking away. Still a clingy, parent-dependent child, Rosalina pleads with her mother not to leave her behind. The mother then states that no matter where she was physically, she would always watch Rosalina from within the starry sky. I just love this because Rosalina herself basically promises Mario the exact same thing at the end of the game, and that's probably where she got it from. But back in the dream, child Rosalina, still unconvinced, asks how her mother could possibly watch over the girl if it's raining or cloudy outside. Her mother then replies with just these words, "I will turn into a star in the clouds and wait for your tears to dry." A horrible foreshadowing of what was to come in real life later. After awakening, Rosalina cries in sorrow, spurring Luma, who lay next to the girl, to cry as well, being reminded of its own mother who is still missing. To make Luma stop, Rosalina then, get this, promises to take care of Luma as its own mother from here on out. The double meanings and symbolism here are just insane. Because, like, Rosalina's mother in her dream just promised to do that for her, basically, so... Anyway, the pair was now a family, and every family needs a home. and the very comet they stood upon became that. Rosalina and the Luma child began constructing the essentials atop the comet: a bedroom, a kitchen, a terrace, a library. This, of course, is what ends up becoming the very observatory still lived on to this day, and where Mario's grand adventure sees its starting point. You can even see the trace familiar color of the tall kitchen dome amidst the background in one of the pages. Another detail I just love too much is the stuffed bunny we keep seeing being clutched by Rosalina wherever she goes. It's a reference to the star bunnies seen in the game. You know, the annoying little bastards you have to chase around in some various levels. But more importantly, it was synonymous with her childhood back on her home planet, and she keeps it wherever she goes as a keepsake, even branding it as an essential item alongside food. And she holds that thing close to her every night. In fact, since we know star bunnies are just transformed Lumas, I bet they started transforming into the bunnies in the first place because they were inspired by Rosalina's stuffed bunny she adored during childhood, and that fact just kills me, honestly. Sometime later, an apricot-tinted planet is seen approaching from the distance, and out from it emerges a yellow-colored Luma. Now meeting the Luma child, the former and the latter stare at each other with unwavering confusion, not sure what to do or what to say. Until the yellow Luma notices Rosalina. And just like the baby Luma who had known Rosalina all this time, Rosalina's every feature resembled that of a mother, which the yellow Luma boastfully called her. Baby Luma called Rosalina mother in retaliation as well, and it seemed chaotic enough with two Lumas fighting for her attention as it is, but then dozens, probably hundreds more Lumas emerged from the apricot planet all at once and were all shouting the same thing, that Rosalina was their mother. Rosalina simply laughed at this and said, "What am I going to do with all of you?" And just like that, the once lonely comet became a refuge to several Lumas alongside Rosalina herself, becoming that much more of a familiar and cherished home to them. And speaking of home, this caused Rosalina to remember her old home planet, now a distant memory. It had been a long time since she'd last been back there, and one day, looking into her old telescope, she spotted her old home yet again, and was looking through the telescope right at a familiar hill. A peaceful hill coated in vibrant green grass and a single sturdy-looking tree. The perfect place for stargazing, which she did often. Back then, Rosalina would drag her heavy telescope atop that hill every night to gaze at the stars, even before meeting Luma. Fond memories of that very hill began to flood into Rosalina's mind all at once when observing it after all this time. She used to rub the sleep out of her eyes and stumble along the steep surface of the hill to catch up to her father so they could watch the stars together at nighttime. She used to sled down the lone hill during the winter months with her brother. And she used to have picnics on that hill with her mother, the same mother she had not seen since within the haziness of her dreams. But all that could never happen anymore, because her mother was sleeping underneath the hill. This entire time, Rosalina's mother had been dead. A suppressed truth Rosalina was finally being forced to face. So naturally, she broke down into sobbing, weeping tears in front of every Luma who lived with her. Disregarding truth, disregarding the past and the present, disregarding anything else, Rosalina begged and pleaded to see her mother again. Forget being watched over from the stars, it was nothing like that. What this was nothing more than a lost and alone little girl wanting to actually see her mother again. But that could never happen. Her mother was sleeping beneath the tree on that hill, and Rosalina was alone. Except she wasn't. The Lumas then gathered round and did all they could to comfort the crying child, promising that they were her family now. The original baby Luma promised to transform into a comet. A soaring comet that can carry everyone on this journey, and lift their spirits to the stars. And putting his words into action, the Luma child who had started this all and was Rosalina's very first friend spun around and took new shape. He transformed into a brilliant blue comet shining all across the galaxy, leaving a confident trail of stardust behind as it shot off towards Rosalina's old home planet. And he had done all this just for Rosalina. She questioned what had happened, and the other Lumas explained that when their time comes, they transform into different star-like forms and return to the natural functions of space, continuing their majestic cycle of life. This happens numerous times within the game as Lumas are seen transforming into launch stars and even whole planets. Some turn to stars, some to planets, some to comets, and some to power stars. To collect a power star is to save the spirit and memory of a star child who once took the form of a Luma. "When I grow up, I want to become a star that makes someone special smile," says one green Luma who chimes in. The Lumas enter and embrace with the girl, and she promises not to shed any more tears for her old family, since she is now in the presence of a new one as the cycle of life continues, in more ways than one. And from here on out, the observatory developed into a grand home for many Lumas whom Rosalina watches over. She promises to watch over them as they grow until they are ready to leave the nest and turn to whatever starry shape their hearts desire, going off into the vast universe. Because, after all, that kind of thing is what makes a mother happiest, says Rosalina to herself. In that span of time, she had completed her character arc and became the very same mother that she loved, revered, and missed so much. Not just a mother to 1, 2, 3, or 4, a mother to hundreds and hundreds of Lumas that she would welcome into the world and see off. She had become the very same mother that she sought after and could not let go of. Rosalina had become the protector of the stars, the one who watches over the starry sky. And even though Mario isn't a Luma, I think he counts as one of those children as well, as she eventually made the same promise to him. Looking back though, Rosalina thought, it would be nice to return to my old home once every 100 years and nap in my favorite sleeping nook. And she did. Okay, full honesty moment here. This does... I mean, it does make me tear up whenever I read it. Like, every time. And I've heard it multiple times. And it's weird because it's one of the very few things that can make me consistently cry. Even other things that might be more popularly labeled as sad don't really affect me while this does. Like, you could literally show me a real non-acted video of hundreds of people dying. Like, straight up dying in a really sad and tragic way. You know? Maybe there's an earthquake and it breaks apart structures which crush 5-year-old children to death right in front of their parents. Nothing. Show me a really sad live-action movie and get to the most emotional part? Nice try. But this one little story gets me every single time. Why is that? Well, it's because this takes place in a Mario game. If it's something you're passionate about, something you honestly and truly care about that holds a significant weight in your life, then something emotional regarding that thing just hits so much harder. Emotional moments in the anime and games I like actually make me feel the powerful and tragic emotions I just don't really get anywhere else, especially if they're done well. And Rosalina's story does well and then some. But now do you see what I mean? This is the sheer power of storytelling in games. This little optional lore side story book within Mario Galaxy is the standalone reason it's revered as one of the best Mario titles. Okay, maybe standalone reason is a bit of a stretch. You know, the reason Mario Galaxy is so big is the game itself. But I think this plays a bigger part than most people realize. Stories like this are what breathe life into the very games and levels we otherwise would just mindlessly conquer without a second thought, even if the game is designed well. It's what makes them feel like truly fleshed out worlds instead of just playgrounds dreamed up for your protagonist to run wild and defeat enemies in. Story elements and good characters motivate the player to finish the game so they can give everyone a happy ending. Without them, there's so much less drive to finish the games. This is precisely why people critique Galaxy 2 so much. Galaxy 2 took the concept of Mario Galaxy, made awesome levels that are equally as fun, but quite literally stripped every ounce of storytelling away and gave it the uninspired middle finger plot of Bowser kidnaps Peach, here's your standard game guide who has little to no personality and really only exists just to be a game guide, here's your regular run-of-the-mill hub, now fuck off and save the princess, the end. And also, a little fun fact for you here is that in Galaxy 1, the tear-jerking storybook I just spilled my guts out to you actually had to be slipped in by the developers into the game without Miyamoto's knowledge nor permission, and you better believe he would have shot that idea down if it were suggested to him normally. That's why he cracked down so hard on the developers during the creation of Galaxy 2, and despite them actually having a more in-depth story that was originally planned to be in the game, that idea was suspended by Miyamoto in favor of a bland, boring-ass 2D picture book intro with nothing more than an exceedingly less epic retelling of Mario Galaxy 1's intro! An intro that was basically exactly the same as Galaxy 1, but just worse. And even more simple. I just don't get it. Why would you not want a story like this in your game? I just explained why the story of Rosalina and the Comet Observatory is the key reason why Mario Galaxy is mine and numerous others' favorite Mario game of all time. If caught, Miyamoto would have without hesitation removed that storybook from Mario Galaxy 1 entirely. Yeah, imagine a future where that ended up happening. Mario Galaxy 1 would not have been the same without it. And, you know, it might sound like I'm kind of having malice towards Miyamoto, but that's not true at all. It's just that one thing I don't understand about him. He's still one of the most amazing people I've ever seen before. Either way, Mario Galaxy had it. It had the perfect balance of story and gameplay. And it's why I could not be happier that it was the first game I ever played, and what brought me into Mario. It's why I'll love it to the end of the starry sky. But anyway, enough of that sad shit! My next story here takes a more epic rather than tragic undertone. It involves a criminal with a genius mind from the Bean Kingdom who nearly plunged the entire world into darkness. Someone who's bar none my favorite Mario character of all time. This is what I was most excited to tell you about from the beginning. The Bean Kingdom neighbors the Mushroom Kingdom, and they seem to be on relatively good terms. The Bean Kingdom only seems to be canon in the Mario and Luigi series, but it's one of the coolest places you'll find. I like the subtle references of like beans compared to mushrooms and how they relate by both being plants that grow in kind of similar environments. The Bean people are humble and peace-loving just like the Toads, but that's not where their similarities end. Both kingdoms seem to possess their respective evil villains who regularly disturb the peace everyone tries so hard to maintain. We already know about Bowser, but who exactly is the infamous villain of the Beanish people? Well, there happen to be two of them, in fact, and they make a lasting impression during Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga's intro. Disguised as goodwill ambassadors representing the Bean Kingdom, the evil overlord Cackletta and her most trusted underling Fawful execute their plan to steal Princess Peach's voice that they seem to need for some devious scheme, no doubt. When Mario and Bowser realize what had happened, they organize a temporary truce to pursue the offenders in Bowser's flying Koopa Cruiser. Oh, also Luigi's there too, whatever. Having caught up with them in the sky, Cackletta taunts the pursuers and shows just how serious of a villain she is, and leaves Fawful to deal with Mario and co. Now, make no mistake here, Fawful is without a doubt the guy I'm talking about and who you should be focusing on, not Cackletta, even though she's the one pulling the strings and is the series' big bad, for now. Either way, as Fawful faces Mario and Luigi for the first time, it's apparent that there might be a few screws loose with the guy, judging solely by the way he talks. He often speaks in the third person and with backwards grammar, making food-related puns and analogies that basically make no sense. He even refers to Mario and Luigi, and presumably all of his enemies in general, as Fink Rats, whatever the fuck that means. But just from that language alone, one thing is at least made clear. This dude is hilarious. Fawful is a fan-favorite character for his personality alone. You know, among the only moderately few people who actually know about him because he's so underrated. But I'm gonna be changing that. And this isn't even mentioning how much of an amazing villain he is. No, we'll see more of that aspect later. Because, believe it or not, this is the lesser showing of Fawful compared to how good he is in a future game he shows up in. But anyway, Fawful and Mario and Luigi trade blows for the first time, and after being defeated, Fawful basically just blows up the Koopa Cruiser out of pettiness, sending the whole thing crashing down to the ground. Later, after journeying through Stardust Fields and into the mountain ranges near Bean Castle, Fawful is seen again facing a royal Bean guard. He is accused by others of having kidnapped Prince Peasley, the royal prince of the entire Bean Kingdom, and knowing Fawful, we wouldn't doubt it. Fawful then basically just effortlessly blasts the guard to hell and forms a blockade around the approaching Mario Bros, halting their progress. And just observe the way Fawful talks. Even when he's doing something as simple as forming a blockade, he treats everything so dramatic. It's just hilarious. Again, he's just so funny. When they later climb a tall-ass mountain and rescue Peasley, it's shown that Fawful had indeed been behind the whole thing. Now think about that. It's not really made clear how much power and influence Cackletta has as a criminal within the Bean Kingdom, or how long she's been around and all that, but just the fact that her sidekick Fawful was so easily able to just kidnap the goddamn prince of all the beans is just, I don't know, makes him pretty intimidating to me. When Mario and Luigi reached the Bean Castle, they were pretty much too late. Cackletta has already stolen the Bean Star, a precious artifact of power which they had their eyes on for a long time now, but was being protected by Bean royalty, and were already on their way to flee with it. And while doing this, Fawful and Cackletta were also able to mind control Queen Bean herself, turning her into a female Hulk beast creature to fight and distract the Mario Bros while they escape. Bro, they just keep pulling win after win, these two. So with both the Beanstar and Peach's voice in their sinister little possessions, it becomes clear that Cackletta and Fawful have everything they need to take over the world. Just like that. Allow me to explain. See, the Beanstar is in a constant state of deep slumber, and somehow the only thing that can awaken it is the sound of Peach's angelic little voice, which they now have both of. So, at Bean University, Fawful's self-developed Peach bots were programmed to be able to replicate Peach's stolen voice so that the Beanstar will rise and obey their every order. The Beanstar possesses a great power, and using it, Fawful and Cackletta can easily rule both the Mushroom and Bean Kingdom and even the rest of the world. Oh, and about the Peach bots thing, Fawful is easily the MVP in Cackletta's army since he's the one with a genius mind. So genius that every robot, weapon, and overall tech-savvy thing Cackletta ever possesses at any point is all Fawful's doing. which of course includes the wondrous Fawful headgear, which can shoot deadly lasers and allow him to hover freely in the sky. He's basically like the Eggman of the Mario universe, and believe me, we'll see more of that in the future game where he puts on full display all the amazing and multi-situational gadgets and weapons he can create. We never actually get to see him creating them or anything, like a Fawful laboratory, which kinda makes me sad. Fun fact, I won't be talking about the Superstar Saga or Bowser's Inside Story 3DS remakes in this video at all, but in the DLC content in Superstar Saga, Fawful basically can shoot purple mind control gas out of his headgear, which he uses to just pretty much effortlessly brainwash all of Bowser's lower tier soldiers and even the damn Koopalings into doing his bidding. Dude, Cackletta, what are you doing during all of this? Fawful literally carries you, bro. Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, the Peach Pots are turned on, which causes the Beanstar to finally awaken to help Cackletta conquer the world, and all hope is lost forever, the end. No, I'm kidding. That's what would happen if something didn't go horribly wrong and the Beanstar didn't instead react in a rage, thrashing around, destroying Cackletta's stupid Peach Pots in the process and disappearing down some hole. Yeah, it turns out the Beanstar didn't react exactly the way they expected, because robots can't exactly replicate a real angel's voice. The villain pair is frightened and confused by this, but that fright soon turns to horror when Mario and Luigi show up right on cue to confront them. Luigi literally crushes Fawful with his hammer like the zero fucks giving champion he is, dishing out some long-awaited retaliation for all the suffering they've inflicted so far. Cackletta, now alone with no other options left, finally faces the Mario Bros herself head-on. And gets fucking annihilated. Well, to be fair, it's not like it was one-sided. A battle did ensue, but Cackletta was eventually beat down, and then Fawful suddenly emerges from the ground again and sucks up her life force into his headgear, this being a last-ditch attempt to save her. Fawful is then ordered by Cackletta to attack the tired Mario Bros again, but before he can, Prince Peasley shows up and jabs the bullshit out of Fawful with his sword, sending the two villains flying away to who knows where and who cares. Turns out Fawful and Cackletta had been blown all the way back to Stardust Fields, a very early location in the game. Injured and with few options left, Fawful limps across the star-strewn plain as he was ordered to find a living body via Cackletta's strange request. After long, monotonous searching, Fawful finds a collapsed Bowser in the middle of the field. So, Cackletta at this point was nothing more than a ghost, a semi-corporeal spirit of her former self that was now currently decaying by the minute after the sheer damage she had sustained by the hands of the Mario Bros. The deplorable snake of a villain needed a body to possess, a fitting one, and fast, before time ran out. God, I'm really making her sound like Orochimaru, aren't I? I don't know. Anyway, it's unclear when Fawful's extreme hatred for Mario and Luigi began, but seeing his master who had been there for him for so long in such a disheveled state due to Mario and Luigi's actions would have definitely played a part in it. This will end up pushing Fawful down a very dark path for the sake of getting revenge on his two enemies later down the line. But now, Cackletta's spirit possesses Bowser, and in doing so becomes the powerful, the flame-breathing, the Koopa-ruling, the... chest, yeah, whatever's going on there, Bowletta. Body of Bowser, soul of Cackletta, and she now gains access to every resource and soldier that once belonged to the original real-deal Bowser. But now that the two villains lost the Beanstar, they still need it back. Mario and Luigi had already put its broken pieces back together at this point and recovered it, so in an all-out classic Bowser prick move, they, you guessed it, kidnapped Peach. Hey, maybe Cackletta just felt the need to really get into the Bowser persona in every possible aspect. And you can't very well be Bowser without kidnapping the princess. At least once a fucking week. Anyway, Cackletta and Fawful proceed to tauntingly dangle the freshly kidnapped Peach in front of Luigi's face like it was their own pricks, and even took Bowser's clown car in the process. They fly away and start making their demands. And in doing so, the villain pair basically holds Peach for ransom and demands Mario and Luigi hand the Beanstar over in exchange for her. Their meeting place, jokes end, an icy cavern full of traps and dickery. But Mario and Luigi are prepared for this, and they have the clever plan of forfeiting a fake Beanstar to Fawful who they meet there. Fawful, being the cunning and observant little master criminal he is, recognizes the cardboard knockoff as a fake and blasts Luigi to hell as punishment. "You ugly little thing, I will now be taking the real Beanstar," he says as he absorbs the real deal out of Luigi's briefcase and flies away. Mario soon after meets with Bowletta and Fawful with Peach in tow, saying that they are now obligated to hold their end of the deal and return Peach as promised now that they have the Beanstar. Oh, the horse shit people go through just to make sure Peach is alright. We're talking about the Beanstar here, an ancient relic that has the power to easily rule a planet, and just about the two most evil bastards in the world owning such a thing should basically be the worst case scenario that all of Mushroom or Beanish kind could possibly imagine. They ain't gonna hurt Peach anyway, and she already gets kidnapped more than the average person has sex. Just let Bowletta and Fawful hold on to her if it means not sacrificing the Beanstar at least. I mean, come on! I would be able to rail Mario and Luigi's very questionable decision making for this if they hadn't had one final ace up their sleeve the whole time. In one of the most clever Mario and Luigi moments I've ever seen, Luigi basically cost-stress cosplays as Peach herself and confuses the fuck out of Bowletta and Fawful. By the way, this is literally the only instance of Luigi having actual dialogue in this series. Since, you know, he's usually talking in that gibberish Italian stuff. But now he's, like, talking as Peach, but actually isn't Peach, having, like, dialogue. I don't know, I just thought that was cool. Basically, they tell the Beanish villains the Peach they had kidnapped was actually a fake and that the real one is right here next to Mario. The reality being, of course, that they currently have the real princess and the free one is actually just Luigi. So, thinking the exact opposite, Bowletta completely takes the bait and discards the real Peach and in turn takes the fake one. Wow, I might have expected this from Bowletta, but how did the cunning evil genius Fawful not realize the fact that Luigi was nowhere to be found in this scene? So, one of the Peaches had to be him. Why not just take both Peaches for good measure? Oh, whatever. Either way, the bros' plan worked, and Luigi was now on board the Koopa Cruiser with the Beanish villains. And in what is probably one of the funniest moments in the entire Mario canon, this happens. Bowletta and Fawful stroke their own geniuses in the previous situation alongside Peach, who laughs with them. Bowletta then wonders why Peach has been constantly covering her mouth this entire time, an odd behavior indeed. Fawful moves close to her, asking if she hides something, but Peach remains in denial. Then Bowletta devises a plan of freaking Peach out like the squirmish little girly girl she is, saying that there's a giant cockroach behind her. And since Luigi is just as much of a girly girl as Peach is, he reacts in the typical girl fashion by freaking out, to which he then releases his hands from his face in a panic, revealing a big mustache. Shooting his headgear laser at Peach, the costume flies off, revealing an undeniable Luigi. Bowletta and Fawful then realize they had been tricked completely and understandably freak. Fawful then desperately fires at Luigi to detain him, but Luigi is diligent and not only escapes the Koopa Cruiser safely, but takes the Beanstar along with him, leaving the evil pair with nothing at all. All of this time, and Bowletta's master plan had amounted to nothing. Or so it seems. Fawful suggests they immediately pursue the Mario Bros, but Bowletta, much to Fawful's surprise, claims that none of that's necessary. Bowletta has a new plan, a foolproof plan that will surely lead to everyone's demise. Mario and Luigi, Peasley, Queen Bean, Peach and Toadsworth, all the Toads and Beanish people, everyone. Remember how I said by possessing Bowser, Cackletta had gained access to all of Bowser's resources and belongings? Well, that includes, of course, Bowser's most infamous and towering possession of all, Bowser's Castle. In a move that surprised everyone, Bowletta quickly deployed Bowser's Castle into the sky up above the heartland of the Bean Bean Kingdom to, as Fawful would put it, rain down fury from up above like dressing upon a salad of doom, or something like that. The Bean Bean towns were relentlessly bombed and laid waste to, several Beanish people severely injured or outright dead. It's just so crazy to me how graphic it all is. The player being able to interact with all the dying Bean Bean citizens who were at this point practically corpses as they uttered what might be their final words to you. Because a similar attack on the very same town actually happened earlier in the game in a similar fashion, at the hands of Fawful, of course, who, let's face it, does all the work, making this the second time the town was ravaged. These Bean motherfuckers just cannot catch a break. Bowletta's castle now hovers over the free world as its foundation slowly slips away, and nothing can be done. After all, it's not like we could just fly up there or something, right? Well, we actually can, with the help of some bird that showed up once in the early game. Yeah, who cares? I want to mention something that's honestly very recurring in these Mario games, though. That there always seems to be like some item of extraordinary power that Mario and Luigi have to fight tooth and nail over against the villains to obtain. It happens so often that the relics in question just end up feeling very forced and almost out of place, like they have nothing to do with the actual end game itself and don't hold much meaning. The Beanstar is a perfect example of this, having been fought over so hard for like most of the game, but in the end, when Bowser's Castle comes into play, the Beanstar literally just returns to Bean Bean Castle. Moving on though, Mario and Luigi are now tasked with the infiltration of Bowletta's castle to finally stop her and Fawful once and for all, with the help of Peasley at various points. Fawful warns his master about the Mario Bros that he hates sudden arrival, and Bowletta seems very unworried, sending the possibly but most likely mind-controlled Koopalings to flood the castle and stop the heroes in their tracks. After every Koopaling is picked off one by one in typical fashion, Mario and Luigi eventually near Bowletta's throne room, but their progress is stopped by Fawful himself one last time as a peculiar machine that resembles him emerges from the depths of the lava. It's now time for the final showdown with the notorious villain sidekick who's been a thorn in the Mario Bros. Side since day one, and vice versa. Fawful seems to be aware of this as well, as he goes on about how their upcoming battle fills him with nervousness and uncertainty. Lakitu's holding stage lights that shine around the jumpsuit-wearing criminal, symbolizing that this was in fact a stage play of the highest caliber. Fawful then goes on to show a side of himself never really seen before, actually telling Mario and Luigi how he feels about his current situation. Apparently, Fawful had been reflecting about his time serving as a mere underling to Cackletta and nothing more. He reminisces how Cackletta's revival into Bowletta in the first place only happened because of Fawful's actions. He feels he's uplifted Cackletta and saved her from capture or even death multiple times, and that he might be just as, or even more capable of being an effective villain himself. Fawful laments how he was just a mere pawn this entire time, such working all for others. This to me is the moment when Fawful begins to truly realize how capable he really is, and what I think pushes him from being just an evil criminal working for an already established overlord who enjoys the simplicity of chaos and destruction, almost in a fun-loving way, to a terrifyingly evil madman who becomes so obsessed with revenge and kingdom conquering that it actually takes over his mind, as he very nearly destroys the world much later. And who knows, if Cackletta didn't meet her end during the events of Superstar Saga, maybe Fawful would have gone on to oppose even her, someone who he's hinted to at least somewhat care about on a personal level. But either way, at this moment in time, Fawful knows his mission is to defeat Mario and Luigi right here and now, so he brushes off his complicated feelings and prepares himself for their fight that will now be mighty. For the second time since the very beginning of the game, Mario and Luigi fight Fawful for what all three of them mistakenly think is the final time. Only this time, Fawful is armed with his latest invention, a Fawful assault machine that protects his body and fires lasers at the bros. They overheat Fawful's machine so they can bash on his exposed, hovering body and eventually take the win. Having been defeated, it seems like it's finally the end for our all-time favorite villain. But you didn't expect that from the legendary villain Fawful, right? You think he'd go down that easily? Hell no! Nah, he displays his cunning genius one last time to make the Mario Bros. Think he was truly defeated, but instead use the last of his remaining energy to zap Mario and taunt them yet again. Now, I could go on and describe how amazing this next scene is shot for shot and piece of dialogue by piece of dialogue if I wanted, but I think it would just hit so much harder to show you this greatness. Just the way he talks about how he's gonna laugh at them while their kingdom falls right to their face, and how he just continues that retarded reverse card gag with Peasley and is like in the finale of the finale of the finale. This is why I like him so much. He's just so great and clever and almost childishly evil. Like everything he does is just like some sort of prick waving contest to him. It's amazing. He's amazing. So yeah, as you saw, Mario and Green Stash basically just punted his deranged ass out of the mouth of Bowser's castle and into the depths of the sky, thus ending Fawful's involvement in Superstar Saga. He has been defeated, my friends, so the game's not interesting anymore. Who cares what happened? No, I'm kidding. It's a good ending. If you're curious, Mario and Luigi go on to have their final battle with Bowletta, and then destroy her soul from inside her body. Yeah, my guys, you might want to get used to the inner workings of Bowser's body, because trust me, it's gonna be a familiar sight come a few years later. Cackletta throws them up and meets her end, as her soul evaporates completely and she dies for real this time. Mario and Luigi escape Bowser's castle before it blows to high hell, and everyone is good and happy in the Mushroom Beaming Kingdom are on perfect terms, and the villains are gone for good, and a horrible crisis like this never happens again. The end. Or it would be that way if Fawful hadn't survived his fight with the Mario Bros and carried both a burning grudge against them and a desire to rule the world greater than the amount of times everyone's forgotten Luigi's fucking name. His story is far from over, my friends. So, yeah, do you like Fawful yet? Think he's as awesome and funny as a waffle and a syrup? I don't know, I was trying to make a food analogy like he does. It doesn't work with me. Well, to fully understand Fawful, we have to also explore the next game he's in, where he becomes a full-on devilish maniac as opposed to a more mischievous villain sidekick with comedic undertones like in Superstar Saga. And while he has no major role in this, Fawful does still make an appearance in the next Mario and Luigi kerfuffle game, Partners in Time. Only encounterable by Baby Mario and Baby Luigi, Fawful is seen running an underground back alley shop called the Fawful's Bean Badge Store. And this place is optional, so it's entirely possible that Fawful could be missed outright when you play this game. He's entirely an Easter egg character, and there have been people who have played Partners in Time without seeing him at all, having missed the little optional area he's in. Oh, the sad fool who missed him that I pity so much, whoever you are. So basically, it's obvious at this point in time that Fawful has already begun his slow descent into insanity that I kept talking about. He talks a lot more sporadically and senselessly towards the infant bros, occasionally just yelling or fidgeting around at random. There's this one point where he basically goes on a tangent, bending and twisting his body and just doing all these weird-ass poses while shouting incoherent promises, like fighting with rage and hurting people's faces, to which he just runs out of breath and casually regains his senses again, asking if he was insane just a moment ago. It's hilarious, and it just visually puts on full display how much he's lost it even further after all this time, a feat most would see as impossible for someone like Fawful, but it just accentuates his personality even more, so it's really fitting. After the babies express interest in Fawful's story, he goes on to explain that he runs the shop with only occasional fury, but used to have fury at all times, referencing his old criminal days. The world was very nearly in Fawful's hands, but before he could take over, he was stopped by the Bad Men. Do I even have to say who he's talking about? Ah yes, the cunning and flawless genius Fawful couldn't even see any resemblance between Baby Mario and Baby Luigi's their adult counterparts. But it's fine. Anyway, Fawful was once close to ruling over all, and if it weren't for those brothers of badness, he would have. Even the mere thought of the two mustached men causes Fawful to enter a severe state of hatred, him shouting insults and curses at the two heroes who aren't even present. Which of course goes to show just how fucking crazy he is now. Basically, Fawful's detest for Mario and Luigi is so strong that their names alone are basically a banned word, and no one in their right mind is to utter their names in his presence lest they desire to feel the fury of an ex-criminal mastermind. So yeah, as you can see, after being defeated in Superstar Saga, Fawful lost everything. His machines, his resources, his power, everything. And with no other options left, he resorted to selling scrappy badges at a most likely illegal shop in the middle of an abandoned underground pipe maze just to survive and barely get by. Talk about some horrible conditions. In his eyes, he lost his reasons for living and even his means for living at the hands of the Mario Bros. You know, what he did as a villain is a separate story, but I can honestly definitely see why he hates Mario and Luigi specifically. They really did take everything from him, because you know just as well as I do that if Mario and Luigi weren't there, Fawful would have won. There was no one else that would have stopped him back then. But nonetheless, even though it's probably highly degrading for Fawful compared to the heights he used to soar above, he is now forced to settle for nothing more than the owner of a failing, broken-down shop. I mean, it's probably failing, right? Do you really think an underground shop where nobody lives in a plumbing pipe area is getting that much attention? Probably not. But he still does his job well, believe it or not. Fawful kind of reminds me of people like Trevor from GTA, you know? People who are like pretty much objectively evil and deliberately commit a lot of horrible crimes, enjoying the life all the while, but are such hard workers in general that they can do these horrible things with diligence and succeed when most other criminals can't. It's a very rare combination to see. Most people who are hard workers and intelligent at the same time often use their skills to help others, or if not, at least help themselves without necessarily hurting others. And most criminals are honestly very stupid and get caught quickly, even if they succeed at their crimes at first. But people like Trevor and Fawful are very intelligent, extremely hardworking, but are very malicious and enjoy hurting others, especially those they dislike. People like this are usually what we call narcissists as well, because if it isn't clear by now, Fawful is very much one. He believes he basically has the right to rule others because he sees himself as superior to them. He has little to no regard for the masses and their lives, as he repeatedly bombs villages without a second thought, and he names and remodels objects and places as references to himself. These are the kind of complexes that make Fawful such an amazing villain, though. One look at him and you basically see a weird-ass, weak and fragile little nerd who was probably beaten down his whole life, but he just more than makes up for it by being so intelligent and so efficient with his work and so good at what he does that he can just threaten whole kingdoms regardless. And that's why he can also just so easily run something as stupid as the Fawful's Bean and Badge store, because he just has that hardworking gene. He can just do shit like this and succeed, even if he doesn't like doing what he does. He's just amazing. Was I doing something? Oh yeah, okay, so anyway, Fawful ends his spiel in the most badass way by promising the world that he will one day rise again, and then no baby's candy shall have safety. Nice thing to say right in front of two babies, asshole. I think that one was on purpose. Oh, and you best believe, by the way, his promise was fulfilled and then some. You think someone as diligent as Fawful would make just a bunch of empty claims? Nah, he does come back, but you know this is coming. But as for his presence in this little Easter egg in Partners of Time, I couldn't be happier about it. I think it was a brilliant move by Alpha Dream to wait one extra game for Fawful's return instead of just making it the very next one after Superstar Saga, thus building the tension even more. I really like the idea of a separate conflict going on with the Shroobs and Partners in Time while Fawful just sits right there under the ignorant eyes of the Mushroom Kingdom itself, slowly gathering his forces as his hatred and bitterness grows and grows. This is another major factor that leads to Fawful's dark personality shift in the next game. The death of Cackletta, the destruction of the empire they shared, leaving Fawful with nothing and forced to stand on the sidelines, scraping by with a stupid worthless beanbag shop while his enemies prosper with no consequences above ground. All of this due to Mario and Luigi's actions alone. This is what leads Fawful to do what he does a few years later. Fawful's master plan to kill Mario and Luigi and send the Mushroom Kingdom to the hands of Fawful just to spite them. In Mario & Luigi Bowser's Inside Story, Fawful's grand and final plan takes hold with him returning as the main antagonist this time around. Here's what he does. Fawful executes his plan with his invention and mass distribution of the Blorb mushrooms, toxic edibles that bloat the bodies of toads into fat, useless husks. After a while, so many toads had fallen victim to the Blorbs that it had become a national pandemic at this point, an emergency meeting being held at the conference hall of Peach's castle to address the frightening situation. It was so dire that they even had to send a Shine Sprite representative named Starlo to offer her aid and feedback on the Blorb's crisis. The only leads they can gather as to why this is happening is that every Blorb toad had one thing in common, that they all bought a mysterious mushroom from an unknown merchant within the kingdom, and the effects took hold soon afterward. Oh wow, a mysterious merchant who sells suspicious items. I wonder who that could be. I guess we can add magical mushroom that makes motherfuckers fat to the list of shit Fawful can invent. Stu's a genius. Anyway, with this knowledge, Mario, who was also attending the meeting, was very nearly about to go to the forest the merchant had been reported to have been operating, but was interrupted by Bowser, inserting himself into the nearly concluded meeting. Bowser thinks it's bullshit, that he wasn't invited to an important meeting regarding the kingdom he also lives in, and when Mario shows his face, he basically just gets pissed off and devolves to capturing Peach even though he probably already had his scheduled kidnapping for this week. So much for being interested in the state of the kingdom. Mario then pummels Bowser instantly, and Peach, using a power she for some reason refuses to use at any other instance in the entire Mario canon, sends Bowser's ass flying so damn far he conveniently crashes right next to the very location of the merchant previously discussed within the woods. Though it seemed like the merchant had planned for this, as when Bowser walks by his shop he excitedly claims that Bowser had won a special prize as a lucky customer. The mysterious merchant claims the prize to be a lucky shroom of supreme luckiness that will power Bowser's luck up to super luck so he can luckily fold his enemies into napkins who are crying. Namely Mario. He specifically mentions Mario. And Bowser, being the rash, idiotic, headstrong, naive cocksucker he is, accepts this literally poisonous looking mushroom from someone he doesn't even know for free without a single question. I'm starting to lose all hope for this motherfucker. But hey, a completely unreliable source says it'll help him beat Mario, and the payoff for that being true is so high you just gotta take the chance anyway, right? You have to forgive the desperate plight of the man who's been losing to Mario for over 30 years and counting. So against Kamek's warnings, the big dumb bastard consumes the lucky shroom and as expected begins to have a severe negative reaction to it. And after being confronted, the merchant then finally swings away his cape into its rightful place and reveals himself as, you guessed it, the one and only Fawful. Back with a vengeance. Fawful laughs at the fact that the seams of his plan are being pulled together, flying away before Bowser starts sporadically inhaling everything in sight like a hypernova Kirby. And back at Peach's castle, Bowser decides, probably unconsciously, to pay another little visit, this time just sucking away at all his problems. Bowser actually inhales, Mario, Peach, Toadsworth, Starlo, Luigi, who puts up a desperate, if not cute, struggle against it, and numerous toads and other creatures along the way as he gracefully disposes of all of Fawful's enemies one by one without him having to even lift a finger. Bowser unconsciously enacting the first part of Fawful's master plan and beginning the inside story. What this means is that Mario and Luigi are now rotting away in Bowser's insides where they surely can't defend against any threats in the outside world, meaning Fawful is now free to frolic on the defenseless corpses of the Mushroom Kingdom citizens, with him in complete control. This would be the case, but Mario and Luigi, of course, survived, falling into Bowser's body, and they eventually awake and strike one of his nerves with their hammers, awakening the beast and establishing communication with him via Starlow. Bowser claims to be in a dim, dark, unfamiliar cave with no prior knowledge of what he's doing there or what happened recently before, showing that he doesn't remember anything from his previous suckage spree. I gotta stop phrasing things like that. But with no feasible way out of Bowser's body for now, Mario and Luigi decide to remain where they are and support Bowser from the sidelines in any way they can, as they urge him to venture beyond the cave and find out the current state of the outside world. And keep in mind, the only one actually talking to Bowser is Starlow. The giant Koopa has no fuck of an idea that the Mario Bros are inside of him right now, but believe me, he'll realize this eventually, and it's hilarious. Anyway, after leaving the cave, Bowser encounters Fawful directly once again as he flies on his hoverboard, a new invention from this game. It replaces his headgear from Superstar Saga, of course. I don't know, maybe he feels like he doesn't need it anymore since he now has Midbus, a character you're gonna see in a few seconds here. So, Fawful may think he's already won, or maybe he's too excited to not boast about his plans, because he openly tells Bowser all of them. And hey, with Mario and Luigi actually out of the picture, I can't even say I blame him for thinking he's already won, because, for all he knows, they're dead. This place is carried on those two Italians' backs, if you haven't realized. Fawful explains that using Bowser to empty Peach's castle was the first step of his master plan, and when Bowser was put out of commission from his inhalation spree, the castle of Bowser would be turned into the castle of Fawful. We're already able to see that Fawful's offensive had been a success, his flying ships making quick work of Bowser's fortress and soldiers. Fawful even boasts right in front of Bowser's face that all he wants is nothing more than to conquer and own the Mushroom Kingdom like it's some sort of carnival prize or birthday present. This is the Koopa King, someone who's been terrorizing the Mushroom Kingdom for years on end, and Fawful is just talking to him like he's just another obstacle in his way. This is why we love him. He ain't afraid of Bowser. He's so goofy on the outside, but you can just tell how serious he is, you already know. What Cackletta struggled to do throughout the entire events of Superstar Saga, Fawful had done just like that. It even further proves my earlier claim that Fawful is a way more intelligent and capable villain than Cackletta ever was, and he was honestly right in believing that he deserves to be more than an underling, such working all for others. But he hasn't entirely won yet. Bowser's up and about again, waking up far earlier than Fawful had expected thanks to the Mario Bros fucking around with his body from the inside. And now that Bowser is back in action, he needed to be dealt with. And Fawful sends his brand shiny new sidekick to do so. It's not made clear how Fawful met Midbus or anything like that, but it's clear Fawful must have done something great in order to earn the powerful brute's undying loyalty, because loyal he is. Midbus goes head to head with Bowser, but since Bowser still feels fatigued from the vacuum mushroom he ate a while ago, he can't put up much of a fight. And thank fuck I guess that Midbus has a strict code of honor and won't fight opponents who can't fight back, because he then tells Bowser to only come back and fight him again once he's grown to be a stronger, more worthy rival. Also, another funny thing about Fawful, well, everything's funny about Fawful, but one specific funny thing is that during the Bowser and Midbus fight, for the short time that they do fight, Fawful is seen giving, like, reverse tutorials to Bowser, telling him to not press X when he should, and to, like, not dodge when he should. It's just hilarious, and it completely feeds into the mythology of how funny Fawful really is. He's the only one that would just give reverse tutorials in a Mario game. Anyway, after the fight, Bowser is pleaded by Starlow to head to Peach's castle, adamant that it's the more important location to secure from the hands of Fawful. But Bowser naturally insists that he goes to his own castle to reclaim it, and Starlow has no choice but to concede with his decision. So, a long journey to reach Bowser's castle and take it back then ensues. The next few times we get to see Fawful isn't in person. Why waste time flying all the way out to Bowser's location to taunt him personally when it can just be done by sending the freshly made Fawful copters to do it for you? Yeah, remember how I said Fawful is basically a narcissistic douche and everything he ever makes is basically modeled as a homage to himself? Well, in this game we get to see that concept in full effect. I mean, we already saw it in Superstar Saga in the final battle with Fawful with that big fortress machine that was green, and quite clearly had his swirly glasses for eyes, so it was obviously supposed to look like him. But here we see it everywhere. Fawful copters that resemble Fawful, Shy Guys that resemble Fawful, worms inside chain chomps that resemble Fawful, giant battle bots that resemble Fawful, goddamn crocodiles that resemble Fawful, a motherfucking train that resembles Fawful. The Fawful Express. When the fuck did he even have time to construct that shit? This dude is insane. Anyway, yeah, the Fawful Copters. One of them swoops in and Fawful speaks through it, telling Bowser he had whipped up a statue monster especially for him to fight him and dick him down. Bowser then has to have a big battle with another one of Fawful's fuck toys. Later, another Fawful Copter appears in Dimble Wood as Bowser makes his way closer to his own castle, and makes it clear that Fawful had made quick work of all of Bowser's soldier squadrons. He literally even installs a portable television in the Fawful Copter that shows a recording of Bowser's men saying shit like, "SOS, we've totally lost, dude. We're being defeated by the minute." Bro, I know Bowser's minions, like the Koopas and the Shy Guys and, you know, the Dry Bones and especially the Goombas, aren't exactly known for being very competent. And this is put on full display when they're portrayed to be stomped on by Mario almost effortlessly every single time they go against him. But seriously, the fact that Fawful destroyed them so easily and just displays this fact in front of Bowser's face, daring him to do something about it, is just crazy to me. Though, this is shown later that this is basically all a part of Fawful's plan to lure Bowser in. Fawful's claims of having wiped the floor with Bowser's soldiers is further confirmed when Bowser encounters large groups of his men locked in cages and stranded where they lie. Bowser encounters both the Goomba and Shy Guy squadrons before he reaches his castle, so he at least saves some of them. And speaking of that, a bit later in the game, Bowser finally reaches his castle regions, and it becomes clear everything really was taken over by Fawful, judging by the mind-controlled enemies that once belonged under Bowser's rule attacking the man himself, and numerous Fawful Copters that patrol the vicinity and sound alarms at the hint of intruders. But that's not even half of what Fawful had remodeled since the Koopa Overlord had been away. Bowser had tried to enter his castle, but the castle itself took flight and went up out of his reach, then launched a cannonball his way at the order of Midbus. The cannonball was caught by Bowser and it nearly crushed him, but with the help of Mario and Luigi inside his body, he threw it back at the castle and the whole thing came crashing down and Bowser was finally able to enter after all this time. But first, one thing I should definitely mention that gives another point to Team Fawful is that earlier in the story back in Dimble Wood, Bowser and a group of his proud, useless soldiers tried to launch a bonsai bill at Bowser's castle, but the enemy was able to react in time and fly the castle up to evade it. Now, I don't know if Bowser's castle was always able to fly or this is Fawful's doing, but either way, he sure knows how to utilize an enemy's home base. Bowser's castle then flies over to Dimble Wood, falls on Bowser and landing and literally crushes him. Bowser only reviving thanks to the help of Mario and Luigi inside him. But you know what that means. If they weren't there, then Bowser is no more. He wouldn't have been able to be revived if Mario and Luigi weren't there, just something worth noting. But anyway, Bowser enters his castle, and that's when things get intense. Bowser, expecting to be greeted as a hero by his captured minions who would now be ecstatic that their savior has arrived, is instead addressed as an unfamiliar guest of sorts by some Goombas who tell him that the Fawful show will be starting soon. Yeah, anyone with eyes can see what's happening here. Bowser for some reason is confused as hell that his Goomba men don't recognize them and blasts them away with fire in frustration. But they have obviously been mind-controlled into almost religiously worshipping Fawful instead, thinking he's been their ruler all along. And not just them. Fawful had brainwashed quite literally every single soldier residing in Bowser's castle into now becoming his blindly faithful underlings. It has an air of creepiness just listening to all of them. Any conversation with the once loyal followers of Bowser entails them going on and on about Fawful's greatness, his features that they like best, raving about collectible Fawful merchandise within the castle, this romantic pair of a Koopa and a Boo claiming to love him above even their significant other. It's insane, just as much as Fawful is. They feel like robots. Obedient, soul-dead robots who worship who they believe to be a god. This is the extent of Fawful's narcissistic attention craving. This is the perfect world he wants to see. Thousands and thousands of slaves worshipping the villain like a human-sized body pillow. Like a weeb would worship his favorite anime girl on her birthday. Fawful wants to be that anime girl, and everyone else is his weeb. I don't know, I'm just trying to help you understand. It's even crazier how there's one Koopa who feels like he remembers the castle belonging to someone else, but just can't put his finger on who. He ponders multiple names that all rhyme with Bowser, but his memory fails to jog any further. But the creepiest thing above all, is that Fawful basically replaces the rug designs that were once of Bowser to his own ear-wide smiling grin and takes every Bowser statue and puts swirly glasses over the eyes so it at least slightly resembles himself. This is the classic example I will turn to when anyone asks me what a douchebag is. The latter is probably just because he hasn't had time to destroy or remodel the statues of Bowser yet, but still, to even do that, that's a Fawful thing. Nobody else does, that's a Fawful thing to do. Anyway, there's talk all around the castle about the upcoming Fawful theater show, which we just know is going to be fucking awesome. Apparently some dry bones has been standing online for multiple days just to see it. Now, am I supposed to make some Fawful Comic-Con joke here? Just like the anime stuff I did a second ago? I don't know, it doesn't matter. Bowser is understandably freaked out by all this, and when he enters the theater room, he finds that a special seat had been reserved especially for him. That should raise a whole bunch of red flags to any rational person over the suspicious notion that their enemy reserved a seat just for them. But for an egotistical fuck like Bowser, this only appealed to his idiot superiority as he was flattered and naively sat right on it. Now, stage lights begin to shine, and the room goes dark, and down drops the tiny little bean as he eggs the crowd on and excitedly requests their cheers. So get this, as if Fawful's self-centeredness wasn't already made very clear by everything we saw up to this point, he is now seen turning what used to be a military training room into an entire-ass theater revolving around Fawful's brainwashing hundreds of people to willingly see the same show multiple times over and remain just as excited about it every time, the audience basically climaxing at the mere honor of being in Fawful's physical presence. He did this, he wanted it this way. Just look at him relishing in the cheers of the mind-controlled masses as he hypes them up to chant for him even louder and louder. He loves being worshipped and celebrated. That was the point of all this. He's just amazingly and perfectly evil. Anyway, Fawful forcibly throws Bowser up on the stage so he can finally have a proper battle with Midbus in front of an audience. An actual cage match. They both fight hard, but after bulking up a bit from Bowser's adventure thus far, he defeats Midbus for real this time. Midbus is dragged away, unable to fight any longer. So, basically, the situation is like this. Midbus is defeated and can't protect Fawful at this time, Bowser's own men obviously can't do shit against him, and Fawful is literally standing right next to him on stage, unarmed and ripe for the punching. This is by far the largest opportunity Bowser has of beating Fawful up and saving his castle, but he doesn't do it. This is probably one of Bowser's most embarrassing moments of all time, what you're about to see, because he's basically about to fall for a string of obvious-ass motherfucking tricks that could have so easily been avoided at any time if he used whatever resides inside the head of his. Seriously, Mario Bros, you've been helping out Bowser by fixing up parts of his body and even giving him upgrades this entire time, right? So go ahead and try to just head on up to the command center of Bowser's brain and give that a much-needed upgrade, okay? Would have done him a lot of good in retrospect. Fawful's an evil genius, but he doesn't even need to utilize half of his highly capable mind to deal with Bowser the way he does next, which I guess should make him count himself lucky that Bowser is so goddamn stupid. Get this, Bowser looks like he's about to punt Fawful out of his castle after defeating Midbus, but Fawful then says that he should first indulge in a victory feast of dishes made by Fawful himself. Food made by his enemy himself, the same man who fed him the vacuum shroom that began this whole ass mess in the first place. Bowser simply laughs and agrees while willingly being led to the feast hall and devouring every last dish like a fucking idiot. After filling up, he tries to leave the room, but the boos who escorted him there in the first place insist that Bowser should keep on eating, and proceed to haul over numerous plates of ham, donuts, and other high-fat foods which Bowser lets get shoved down his throat like a mountain goat who hasn't seen edible matter for a week. Bowser, while eating this food, is literally visibly putting on multiple pounds per second as his gut expands at a massive rate, bloating him further and further. He questions why his actual stomach is hanging down to his legs, but still continues to eat after being assured by the boos that it's nothing and he's just imagining things? Imagining things? Look at him! How does Bowser go along with this and not suspect that it's a trap? He's a fucking retard, dude. After having his stomach expand 3 times over, he begins to realize something might be amiss here, but by then it's too late. He's so goddamn fat and heavy he falls into the fucking floor and can't move a muscle, and is therefore trapped and helpless for Fawful to do whatever the fuck he wants with him. Even Starlo mocks his stupidity to fall for such simple tricks, which I fully support. Mario and Luigi then venture through the fat zone of Bowser's body to explore, and there they finally reunite with Peach after all this time. But this plays right into what Fawful had been wanting since Bowser arrived. See, Fawful didn't know at the time, but he actually needs the princess for the continuation of his master plan. But since he didn't know this earlier, he let Bowser inhale Peach and discard her with all the rest. But now that he realized he needed her and she was still inside Bowser, Fawful had developed a scheme to lure Bowser into the Fawful Theater, have him battle Midbus to make him think there was a challenge involved, and if Bowser won, which he did, he had a backup plan. Bowser would be made to think he had won with his confidence raised, so Fawful would lure Bowser into eating his fattening dishes that would bloat Bowser up and prevent him from putting up a fight of any kind while Fawful extracts Peach from Bowser's body, putting her in his clutches so he can enact the next part of his plan. And what is the next part, you ask? Well, it's all explained by Peach, who starts to realize Fawful's intentions. She believes he plans to use her to awaken the Dark Star. She goes on to explain that the Dark Star is an evil source of chaos that had long ago threatened the Mushroom Kingdom and nearly cast it into ruin, but was stopped by the Shine Sprites, who used their powers to neutralize the Dark Star and send it into an eternal state of slumber. The one time any of the Shine Sprites besides Starlo are mentioned or even mean anything. But with the Dark Star asleep, Peach made the decision to hide it deep underground beneath the Toad villages so that no one with evil intentions could ever know of its existence, let alone get their hands on it, since the Dark Star's incredibly sinister power falling into the wrong hands would surely spell the end for the entire world. However he knows about it, Fawful would without a doubt use it to rule everything, as we've clearly seen so far, so he must be after the Dark Star. But why does he need Peach to use it, you might be wondering? Well, the only one with the power to awaken the Dark Star once again is Peach. Why? I mean, like, what is in Peach that allows her to communicate with all these ancient artifacts? First the Beanstar, now this. She's the only one that can awaken it. I don't know, man. Well, actually, I think that has an answer, because it leads into a little complaint I have. Remember before how I was talking about the whole kind of overdone mystical item of great power trope? Well, here it is again. Another aspect I forgot to mention is that Peach is always the only one with the power to get a response out of the item in question, or awaken it, like I just said. I think this is how they make Peach have a role in the Mario and Luigi games. She's just kinda like there for the first half of the game, and then is utilized to awaken the something star, and that's what she's there for. I'm mostly kidding, it only happens like twice, but, you know, it's hard with Peach sometimes. Though, like I said, I have to give this game credit, since, unlike the Beanstar, the Dark Star is not only a way cooler concept, but actually becomes important as fuck during the endgame. So it seems they learned their lesson from last time. Too bad it doesn't show up anywhere else in Mario. But you're about to see why I think that with the Dark Star. Anyways, Peach is extracted from Bowser by Fawful, and here we really get to see the whole highly intelligent but physically weak as fuck trope. Because Fawful struggles to even carry a light-ass princess on his back, while people like Mario are seen doing it with ease. Told you I was right about that. So, the game basically needed a convenient way to get Bowser out of his castle and halfway across the entire map. So, in probably the most wacky cartoonish display in Mario history, Bowser accidentally activates a box of bob-ombs and they somehow deliberately blow Bowser right out of the roof of his castle and southward. And then he somehow curves west midair and lands right in the underground caves of Cavy Cape. Sure, I guess, whatever. After drilling all the way to underground Toad Town, a change in Bowser's body occurs, resulting in Mario and Luigi finally being able to exit Bowser's body via warp pipes that are somehow connected from outside his body to the inside. Yeah, don't even ask me how that works. Hey, warp pipes in Mario act mostly as portals anyway, so... But like, what if Bowser himself were to enter one of the pipes? Anyway, Mario and Luigi hear the faint sound of Fawful's voice nearby, and it becomes clear that this underground cavern is the very location where the Dark Star had been placed under safekeeping, which is a terrible reality, as it means Fawful could only be minutes away from uncovering the lethal relic. And their worst fears were realized once they entered the room holding the Dark Star to find that Fawful himself had just nabbed it. He's so gleeful, he begins singing about the destruction of the Mushroom Kingdom and mocking whatever Mario and Luigi could do to stop him, retreating with the Dark Star and the princess in his clutches. Yeah, mocking his enemies right in front of their faces, nothing new. We know he's capable of that, but the fact that he just tries to sing like that and just blatantly fails at rhyming, that's something special. In hot pursuit, Mario and Luigi try to enter Peach's castle to stop him, but Fawful uses the Dark Star's dormant power to create a dark wall blockade, preventing them from entering, to which he taunts them even further with a Fawfulcopter. Mario, Luigi, and Bowser soon learn that the only way to destroy these blockades is with the power of the Star Cures. 3 of them, in fact, scattered across the kingdom that they must gather in one place. Now, this sounds an awful lot like gathering the remnants of the Beanstar in a previous title, let's be honest. But either way, most of the following gameplay until the finale involves Mario, Luigi, and Bowser locating the 3 Star Cures, so I'll spare talking about this portion very much because it doesn't really involve Fawful, but one important note is that many of Bowser's own non-brainwashed men had openly betrayed him, thinking siding with Fawful was a better choice for their own security since they believed it was highly unlikely Bowser would ever be able to beat him. The Monty Moles betrayed him by becoming the proprietors of the Fawful Express, a tunnel project they were working on that was originally supposed to be for Bowser, using the train to try and crush Bowser with the hopes that it would land him on Fawful's good side once he finally took over. And then the idiot Private Goop trio betrayed him as well by throwing Bowser himself in a secure safe with no escape. This either further displays the spineless jackasses that Bowser's minions truly are, or the fact that Fawful really is ultra intimidating as a villain and people within the Mushroom Kingdom even recognize how he already has a firm grip on the world at this point. Probably both. Anyway, after collecting all 3 Star Cures and busting down those pesky walls of darkness, everyone is finally free to enter Peach's castle and stop Fawful before it's too late, initiating the story's final act. Up until this time, Fawful had already hooked the Dark Star and Peach up to a machine meant to drain Peach's wish power into the Dark Star until it awoken. But it must have been a long process since it lasted throughout the entire Star Cure hunt and was continuing the draining process even when Mario and Luigi had entered. Midbus remarked how with both all-important items in their possessions, the world would surely already be theirs for the taking, and they had nothing to worry about. Fawful then ordered he cease this kind of talking immediately since it gave him stress. Though Fawful was willing to boast to high hell about how he's already won to his enemies, this is just to antagonize them. As in actuality, Fawful isn't cocky or overconfident in the slightest. He recognizes his own limitations and only sees the situation for what it is, and would never lie to himself that this is a one-sided battle he's meant to win. Fawful understands the possibility of failure is still very much there, and it's not good to say you've won until the very end. And upon entering the grounds of Peach's castle for the first time since the game's intro, we see that it had received the very same treatment as Bowser's castle. Everything was remodeled after Fawful. Statues and designs once of Peach were replaced with that of himself. And numerous Fawful bots are stationed around the territory, guarding the premises without a single toad in sight. First, I just want to mention how cool the Fawful bots are. They're bulky action robots, which is a contrast to how not buff Fawful himself is, and you eventually encounter dark Fawful bots that have dark powered attacks and somehow look even cooler. Seriously, best Fawful inspired design I've seen yet. But anyway, when it comes to this, I mean, we didn't expect the Toads to put up a fight of any kind if Bowser's soldiers couldn't, but the fact that Fawful has literally successfully taken over both Peach's and Bowser's castle at once is kind of just like one big middle finger to all his enemies. He now virtually has the entire kingdom under him, which to me further invokes the feeling of dread portrayed in the endgame of Bowser's Inside Story. All it will take is the absorption of the Dark Star and it's over for sure. Which is totally what Fawful plans to do, by the way. He wants to drain all of the Dark Star's power into himself so he can utilize it as the ultimate being of evil. Then no one can stop him. Yeesh, imagine a maniac like him with full access to the Dark Star and all its abilities. A thought that would surely cause anyone to shudder. And so fittingly, this final act is when the game seems to take a sort of a dark undertone, one that we've never really seen anywhere else in Mario. The desolate atmosphere of Peach's abandoned gardens puts on full display the amount of damage Fawful has done up until this point, and suggests a shift in the narrative. In Superstar Saga and early on in this game, Fawful probably struck most people as a more annoying little villain who does need to be dealt with, but it will eventually happen one way or another, and everything will turn back to normal again. But now it feels way more serious. Like Fawful is about to have a grip on a power even he can't comprehend, and the threat of him taking over the world is right there just short of his grasp. Everyone he's attacked and destroyed has really added up over time, and it can be seen just by walking around and seeing the state of both castles and the rest of the kingdom. Both sides are now in a desperate struggle and race for the finish, and every player is fighting tooth and nail to alter fate in their favor. Mario and Luigi, Bowser, Fawful and Midbus, Starlo, fuck it. It all comes down to this: the fate of the entire world will be determined by the battle going on in this very castle. So, after some adventuring around the place, Bowser finally reaches the location of the Dark Star's suction and encounters Fawful and Midbus. Fawful complains how Bowser has horrible timing, and thinks a battle between the three of them is about to ensue. Midbus, however, is hungry for redemption from his previous loss, and Fawful acknowledges how Midbus has the pride that drives him to beat Bowser alone. So instead of fighting alongside him, Fawful simply powers Midbus up to Blizzard Midbus, who, I'll admit, looks pretty damn cool, and leaves Bowser to him. After a fated final battle between two men, Bowser wins, defeating Midbus for good this time as he freezes up like frozen pork, and this leaves Fawful backed up into a corner. He's freezing up like frozen pork because he's a pig, he's like a pig, he's a boar, he's something like that, that's the joke. Anyway, Bowser would have had the chance to wail on him, but they're interrupted by the Dark Star's long-awaited awakening. The draining process was complete. Fawful is in awe of its amazing evil power and hurriedly attempts to drain it entirely. He can't even contain his excitement at the thought that he is now gaining the power that will make the world his, and it shows just how much he craves the absolute power of the Dark Star like a deranged, obsessed maniac. To be fair, he has wanted this for a long time, and he's probably dreamt about it nigh 1,000,000 times. Fawful was right, however, that Bowser being present was going to be an issue, as the Koopa King then punched Fawful away before he could finish the draining process, remarking how satisfying it felt to finally punch that weirdo out. Therefore, Fawful is stopped from absorbing the full extent of the Dark Star's power, but a new problem emerges. He had managed to drain exactly half of it, the remaining half still residing in the now awakened Dark Star. Both dark entities long to be complete, and to do this they must reunite with each other and merge into one ultimately dark being. This is when Fawful's descent into power-obsessed madness truly begins. He never really considered this fact, or at least never really cared, but even half of the dark power is so great that it would surely corrupt his mind and cause him to lose his former, at least semi-rational self. Now a fully chaos-obsessed being, Fawful had to be stopped now more than ever. The Dark Star itself, however, after entering Bowser's body and copying his DNA, was able to transform itself into a semi-corporeal dark clone of Bowser. This is where we see Dark Bowser for the very first time. And needless to say, he's one of the coolest characters Mario has ever created. Just like an even more evil, purely sinister version of Bowser who loses all his punk cockiness in favor of pure unhinged malice is just crazy to me. And look at his design. Blue skin and gleaming red eyes? I wish Dark Bowser was acknowledged more in Mario. I mean, same with Fawful, but that's one of the points of this video. But unfortunately, it's the Mario and Luigi series, partly owned by Alpha Dream, and its original characters aren't canon anywhere else. Anyway, Fawful is next seen roaming in search of the Dark Star just outside of Peach's castle, and he's growing tired of Bowser's meddling. But let's acknowledge for a moment Fawful's design changed, because holy fuck! Instead of his previous red cape, he now wears a Dark Star-style blue cape with spiked edges and a jumpsuit with the Dark Star logo, alongside now red, more intimidating-looking glasses with his flying headgear having made a comeback but now resembles more of a jetpack. He looks fucking awesome, dude. I just love the headcanon that anything affected by the Dark Star will change its appearance into a dark-looking version of itself. And Fawful could not be a better victim of this transformation. He is the coolest he's ever been at this specific time. Dark Fawful is literally peak Fawful. So to distract Bowser, he basically activates whatever thing that turns Peach's dormant castle into a Peach fighting bot castle with new and improved dark powers to take on a giant Bowser. Yeah, I don't know when he had the time to give Peach's castle the ability to do this either, but we roll with it. Though, I can't complain too much, since the castle bot is able to form black holes that suck enemies in and clearly has dark powers of its own. And anything with dark power in this game makes it 10 times cooler. You could make Bowser fight a dark rubber dick for all I care. But after defeating the castle and leaving it in horrible shape, Bowser pursues Fawful once again, then finally finds him. Fawful, of course, is still trying desperately to reunite with his other half, and he's seen within the very conference hall the Blorb's meeting took place in at the beginning of the game. The portion of the desk still broken off from when Bowser punched it all that time ago. I just love the fact that their final battle takes place in a familiar location where Bowser was once defeated. It just adds so much to the epicness and majesty of it all. And what we see next is one of my favorite scenes of all. Fawful is surprised, and above all enraged, that Bowser has managed to survive this long, thinking he should really be dead by now. Bowser simply scoffs and asks what else he expects from the legendary Koopa King, still maintaining his classic street-yard cockiness in the face of the dark power. But Fawful says that Bowser is nothing compared to himself, who is now ruling the world, and seems absolutely sure of this fact. But Bowser basically laughs at this because Bowser has always been sure that the world belonged to him instead. Fawful insists that Bowser is underestimating him, and to be fair, he might be. Fawful thinks that only half of the dark power should be sufficient enough to end Bowser for good. He then goes on to contemplate the events of before and all the plans that have failed due to Mario and Luigi, and now Bowser's actions. He lets Bowser know right in front of him that he hates him just as much as Mario and Luigi, that he hates their faces and can't wait for the day that they'll be eliminated forever. Fawful had tried to kill Mario and Luigi at the beginning of Bowser's Inside Story with that vacuum shroom, but they returned, just like always, and got in his way again. And now Bowser was no different. His hatred for them was at an all-time high, and if he had his way, he would probably even torture them to death. But as scary as Fawful should be right now, Bowser just brushes him off again and tells him not to lump him in with Mario. It's just awesome, you know? Like their extreme personalities that I both love are now having a full-on clash as they both prepare to fight at their peak. They both assume that only one of them will leave this battle alive, so Fawful sees it fit to kind of explain the truth of how he's felt about them all this time. Meanwhile, Bowser's just there, seeing Fawful as some weirdo who constantly gets in his way, forever and always retaining his childish, self-obsessed beliefs that the Mushroom Kingdom is his playground and always has been. Needless to say, I just love everything about this moment. Unhinged Bowser versus unhinged Dark Fawful, both at their peak. And finally, Bowser comes out on top. Bowser beats Fawful, even with half the dark power, and Fawful becomes too weak to wield it. Through his defeat, Fawful deforms into a being of pure darkness, lacking the strength to maintain a competent body or use any of his powers. The dark power has now completely overridden Fawful, and he is now an only slightly intelligent dark spider-like creature with his large, bulging teeth and red-rimmed glasses turning into his eyes, being the only remnants of his former beanish self. Fawful used to be a bean, a citizen of the Bean Kingdom to be more specific, but is now just a bug. A mindless bug corrupted by the dark power. These are the consequences Fawful overlooked due to his sheer obsession with the dark power, because it now corrupted him entirely without much trace of Fawful left remaining. Just compare this to what he used to be when we first saw him. Just a little bean villain who craved a little chaos in his life. And look at him now, a fool who lost his humanity at the promise of infinite power, only muttering incoherent Fawful phrases like having fury based on loose memories of what his life once was. And you know what makes this even more impactful? In a beta version of the game where the storyline was a little different, Fawful was planned to not be 50% Prime Fawful at all. When he first tried to absorb the Dark Star's power after Bowser beat Midbus, he was originally just gonna get fucking electrocuted and instantly turn into that creepy bug creature that we just see now. You know, and it was gonna happen instantly. He couldn't handle any of the Dark Star's power. He was a complete fool for thinking he could take it. And, you know, even though I prefer the way the game actually turned out, because I'd love to see Bowser fight peak Fawful, you know, when he was still himself, I can't deny how even more impactful it is for him to just completely foolishly think he could take any of the power, then just he tries to, and it just turns out like shit. Because that's how obsessed he was. He just lost all his reasoning and did the first really stupid thing in his entire career. And it's just crazy what that would have been like if that were true. But this is the moment that makes Fawful. This is why he's so loved beyond just his personality. His character arc through these games and the time we spent with him as his ambitions climbed higher and higher to the point that it actually consumed and destroyed him. He wanted the dark power more than anything, but it's pretty ironic how the awakening of what he desired so much was the beginning of his downfall. Fawful leaves the room, and before Bowser can react, the worst nightmare had come true. Dark Bowser finally found Fawful, and by inhaling the dark bug, absorbed the remaining dark power into himself and was now complete. A fully physical Dark Bowser with Fawful inside him, he was now at 100%, and can unleash his devastating power upon the world at any time he chooses, and he knows just the place to do it. Beyond the throne of Peach lies a dark sanctuary seemingly built around the idea of the Dark Star residing there. It's unclear when and why this place was built, and by who, but I have to wonder why it's sitting hidden right behind Peach's throne room, and what that could mean regarding Peach herself. Or if she knew about this place all along. Bowser is not about to let a faker version of himself exist for another moment, and is mostly only entering this battle with the intent of proving that he's the original real deal. Bowser rushes to catch up with Dark Bowser, stealing for a fight, and when he finally does, the finale begins. Dark Bowser goes on about how the dark power being released will plunge the world into his control, and everyone who dwells within the kingdom will sleep eternally under the dark power's embrace. He demonstrates this by expelling mass amounts of fog that creates a giant dark hurricane, already beginning the process of shrouding the world in darkness. And as Bowser simply laughs off Dark Bowser's rant, he makes one last bold claim that the Mushroom Kingdom belongs to him, and Bowser and Dark Bowser have their fated final battle. And what's Fawful's role in all this? Well, he is seen within Dark Bowser, healing the demon whenever necessary. But once a nice gut punch is delivered, Dark Bowser gags out Fawful, allowing Bowser to inhale the pesky bug who's given the Koopa King such a bad migraine. So, if you don't know, one of the game's core mechanics involves Bowser inhaling smaller enemies that Mario and Luigi can then deal with within his body, allowing all playable characters ample chances to fight and level up. And now Fawful in his tiny state can be inhaled. I just like how since Fawful was the reason Mario and Luigi were down there in the first place, the now pint-sized bug gets to be the last one to experience the true meaning of this teamwork he created secondhand, as well as how it feels to be trapped inside someone with no means of escape. And his final moments, no less. Dark Fawful is then greeted by Mario and Luigi inside Bowser's body, and they have their own fated final battle, finishing off what they started 2 grand adventures ago once and for all. But it's a lot different this time, of course, Fawful using the Dark Star core to transform into a giant bipedal spider demon and fighting the bros that way. I mean, just compare this to their very first fight with Fawful in Superstar Saga, how much he and the bros have both grown, all the enemies they fought up to this point, and what it took for them to finally get at their peak right now. And the current state of Fawful is almost unrecognizable compared to his old self. He might have previously been influenced by it, but now the darkness has completely taken him over, and he's a slave to it. unlike the other way around which he had planned. And after taking enough damage, Fawful is even seen losing his arms and legs and melting into a pitiful puddle of dark liquid. He's just a creature now. A dull, power-hungry creature. So we get it. His descent has reached its highest point. No further words need to be said, and the only mission left is to end his destructive reign before it can engulf the rest of the world. And after Mario and Luigi deal enough damage to the core, it explodes along with Fawful himself as Dark Bowser's powers are diminished into nothing. And Bowser deals the final 5 blows, and then the Dark Star laments how it losing was supposed to be impossible. It doesn't have much time to reflect on this though, as it soon floats into the sky and lets out a quiet, defeated explosion and disappears for good. It seems the struggle is finally over and the world is saved, but Fawful is not quite dead yet, and appears before the Mario Bros to deliver some final words. Now a tiny, limbless, beaten-up insect with what little left remains of the dark power drizzling out of him, Fawful is slowly dying, both on the outside and the inside. Realizing that all hope is lost for him, he laments once again that every time he tries to do anything, the mustaches are always there to stop him. Any scheme he makes, any act of evil, any planned takeover, is always and always foiled by Mario and Luigi every time without fail. He laments how he had every advantage and that he tried so hard, put in so much work, planned so carefully, and used every ounce of his power to see to it that his goal is achieved. But as long as Mario and Luigi were around, he'd never take over any kingdom in this world. He tried so hard and he got so far, but in the end, his whole life turned into a Linkin Park song. This moment just evokes a sense of pity that I think most players feel when experiencing it. You just kind of understand his frustrations if you play the 2 games that he's in, since you've seen firsthand that every time he tried to do anything he was in fact stopped by the Mario Bros. And you also feel like he at least deserves to have some victory since his plans were so good and he was so smart about executing them, but most of all you feel the emotion you're supposed to feel. Pity. Pity for this sad, shriveled-up insect who tried to wield a power he couldn't comprehend but still clung to his greatest hope all the way through. But whatever Fawful has in regards of intelligence and skill, Mario and Luigi have it as well, along with being extremely determined to protect the kingdom they love. After he finishes his bitch crying, Starlo suggests that it's over and that Fawful should give up on evil entirely and quit the life, and he has no other option left but to do so. Fawful recognizes this truth as well, and concedes by promising he will cause no further trouble or harm as he leaves the kingdom alone and never comes back. After hearing this, they literally drop their guards and are quite clearly willing to let Fawful escape on a promise of pacifism alone. Didn't this shit kinda happen once before? Come on guys, do you honestly and truly think someone like Fawful is ever gonna give up? That he won't take advantage of any opportunity under the sun to eliminate you both and achieve his goals? Especially considering how much he hates you? I feel like you've seen enough from him to know this by now. And big surprise, I was exactly right, because after claiming to be getting ready to leave and disappear forever, a devilish grin that spreads from one eye to the other emerges on Fawful's face as he shouts, "With you!" Then blows the fuck up right in front of them. Yes, Fawful, realizing he had no chance of ever making a comeback as a villain again, decided to destroy himself by blowing up as a last-ditch effort in hopes of taking Mario, Luigi, and Starlo along with him, killing them all in one final attack. This is a Mario game, by the way. But even so, the amount of hatred and determination it takes to try and win a victory even when you're at death's door and there's no hope left for you just shows how hardcore Fawful really is. He's basically saying, fine, if I can't prosper, then neither will you, and just full on tries to take Mario and Luigi out with him so at least they can't live on in happiness within the world they just saved. Talk about dark. Well, darkness is kind of the theme here, so... Anyway, the explosion caused by Fawful doesn't actually end up killing Mario or anyone else, it just causes enough force for Bowser to throw up Mario and everyone else out of his body. He gets super pissed off that they've been down there partying in his body this entire time, has a big fight with them, gets the bullshit pounded out of him with relative quickness, and everyone is happy at the end. One final note that shows just how hardcore of a villain Fawful was is that in the end credits of the game, it basically has a slideshow of Bowser and Peach's castle looking like absolute shit after the damage caused by Fawful, and hundreds of toads and underlings of Bowser making a group effort to fix everything and restore the broken kingdom back to its former state. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I've never seen another Mario villain doing that much lasting damage to our own red-capped hero's home turf. But with all that said and done, I can't really say much else in praise of Fawful that I hadn't already gone on about during the description of his story, so my final thoughts are just look at his progression. Through the events of a 3-game trilogy, we see him go from a hilarious lackey of a more powerful villain, to a slightly crazy shopkeeper who had lost everything and craved revenge, And finally to a deranged main antagonist who comes closer to taking over the Mushroom Kingdom than Bowser or anyone else ever did, influencing the events of arguably the best final boss fight in all of Mario and marking the end of Alpha Dream's era of compelling Mario stories with his very defeat. These are the reasons I ask myself why Fawful doesn't get more attention in the Mario and even the Nintendo community. He's one of the best video game villains I've ever seen, both in personality and from a writing standpoint. He just goes through this whole character arc that I've never seen or would have expected from Mario. He's so underrated. And of course, he's the perfect example of the rare moments that Mario games had great storytelling, with that being one of their priorities as opposed to just good gameplay mechanics and level design. So with that, I hope you learned about a new side of Mario that you never knew before and have come to appreciate some hidden gems in the franchise. Maybe you'll even try a few of these games out yourself if you haven't already. Like I said, the point of this video is to express how I feel about Mario's recurring style to not be big on story. To not really include many compelling story elements in their games, with the notion that they should be more simple and prioritize good and simple gameplay over story. Because while I agree that Mario games can work relying on quality gameplay alone, and music as well, because let's be honest, since those two aspects always end up being so solid they can just carry the games alone regardless. If they just went that extra mile and discarded the stupid little no-story philosophy, then Mario games would have the best of both worlds and be absolutely amazing, because studies among video game fans repeatedly show that they like story and good characters, and it not only motivates people to want to finish a game, but causes them to remember the games fondly even years after playing them. Unfortunately though, this hasn't really happened in a lot of Mario games. Again, Modern Paper Mario is more than a perfect example of this, so I want to talk about the rare moments when it kinda did happen. Mario Galaxy 1 and the original Mario & Luigi trilogy are revered games because of this. Why do you think Mario Galaxy 1 is more remembered than Galaxy 2 for the reasons I discussed earlier? Or why the first 3 Mario & Luigi games are opposed to the later 2? Point is, people like story. Kids like story, and you best believe I do too. Story elements are pretty much the #1 thing I look for in a game, and that's why I cry during Rosalina's backstory, and that's why I hyperfixate in Fawful all the time and get giddy at the thought of just explaining him to people who know Mario but don't know about him. I already like Mario, so seeing interesting characters with compelling stories and motivations just adds so much life to the worlds and lands we explore in the games and otherwise wouldn't think much about. I'll always love and treasure the games I talked about in this video forever, and continue to revisit them for years to come.